Hello, Dr. Dave Webster, and this is part of my ongoing video blog series about the travesty of lack of access to PET-CT in Ontario. And I hope you find this a particularly disturbing video, especially if you have breast cancer, but if you have any kind of cancer or in fact other diseases where PET would be used routinely in the rest of the world. But it's entitled The Ultimate Affront to Ontario Women, but of course men can get breast cancer as well. Dr. Mark Levine has been awarded the Order of Canada and heads a breast cancer research group at McMaster University. Yet, as chair of the Ontario Clinical Oncology Group, or OCOG, he has played a key role in making sure that Ontario breast cancer patients are blocked from access to the world standard of imaging management of patients with advanced breast cancer. And it's been that way in the rest of the world for probably 10 years. Now, OCOG is a committee of Cancer Care Ontario formed as part of the efforts of Cancer Care Ontario to carry out their mandate to block patients from PET scanning on behalf of the Ontario government. And as chair of OCOG, the committee sponsored the PET Predict trial, which was carried out on women with early stage breast cancer. There's the trial published over here, but it was the PET Predict trial that led to the 2005 motions from the Canadian Association of Nuclear Medicine that declared the CCO PET trials on cancer patients as unethical. Here's Dr. Dal Dreger, most senior member of the PET Steering Committee. He resigned and discussed in 2009, stating publicly that what those blocking PET for the Ontario government in Ontario were doing bordered on immoral. Now, Dr. Levine works for McMaster University, and if you've not seen my video entitled Does McMaster University Have No Shame, you might want to do that, but it makes absolutely clear that McMaster has abandoned anything resembling academic, ethical, or moral standards in return for truckloads of taxpayer cash to help CCO carry out their mandate on behalf of the government. So McMaster University has stated, OCOG is known for its trials in breast cancer radiation and prostate radiation. OCOG is a world leader in conducting trials in PET scanning in oncology. The results of the OCOG trials influence provincial policy. Keep that in mind, because that's affecting and impacting not just cancer patients, but lots of other patients in Ontario. But they've made the statement OCOG is a world leader in conducting PET trials in PET scanning. The reality is this, that since 2005, Canadian and international PET experts have openly condemned in prominent medical journals what CCO, OCOG, and other committees have done to Ontario patients. An example would be this. The Society of Nuclear Medicine U.S. organization is one of the largest professional organizations in the world representing the specialty of nuclear medicine, where PET is included. Dr. Sandy McEwen was president, and in their publication called the Journal of Nuclear Medicine in 2009, he published an editorial, Does Health Technology Assessment Put Patient Care at Risk? And in that editorial, he speaks about the capricious use of a scientifically baseless process to block Ontario patients from PET. Now, I first started writing Dr. Levine back in 2005 about that trial. He didn't get back to me, so in 2006, I wrote him a letter basically saying I would expect a reply. But in addition, very importantly, I'd said I was sending everything along to the ombudsman at the time, Mr. Andre Moran, who had stated publicly that this was the most complex investigation he'd ever carried out. It was looking into the issues around PET and how it was handled in Ontario. I have more to say about that, but all the ombudsmen, if you think they're watchdogs, they're lapdogs, and I'll have more to say about that. September 2010 letter, December 2016. I'm persistent, eh? But Dr. Levine finally responded, but he did not answer a single question I put forward to him. Instead, he makes it clear I was to stop writing him letters to him. Now, but what's important and critical is Dr. Levine, like everybody else I've written about this that are government medical experts, he does not challenge a single statement or claim, including commenting on the CNN motions or Dr. Dreger's statement about bordering on immoral. One would have thought these were pretty upsetting and disturbing and insulting statements. The fact that they don't comment on them or challenge them speaks for itself. Now, in January 5, 2017, I, of course, continue to write him, and I get this interesting little reply, nice scented little envelope, thank you, Mark Levine, and in there he states, I asked you not to stop writing letters to him. But then he says this, quotes, I considered unprofessional and harassing. Think about that for a moment. He's head of the oncology, this OCOG group, which is it is heavily involved in influencing healthcare policy, particularly for cancer patients in this province. And by asking him to defend what he and his committee has done, he's considering it unprofessional and harassing. Speaks volumes, doesn't it? And remember that statement from OCOG emphasizing its influence on provincial policy. Ontario is the only medical jurisdiction offering PET in the world to continue to deny that FDG PET can provide critical information for patients with advanced breast cancer. And in fact, it is that OCOG-sponsored PET Predict trial that is used to justify this unique position on the planet Earth. May 7th, I continue to write about the PET Predict trial with very specific questions this time. Now I get a more formal response. I have a lot more to say about that later. And by the way, all these letters will be posted on my social media sites and websites. And if anybody is going to take medical action or legal action against the government and so on, then I would be more than happy to provide you with all the documents that you need. But at this time, I was now being threatened by Cancer Care Ontario and the College of Physicians and Surgeons for daring to make this information public to physicians and the government. But one of the things my Canadian Medical Protective Association lawyer confirmed to me was what I had always thought, was that if Dr. Levine and I were talking about a patient between ourselves, we would clearly do that privately behind the scenes, not in public. But Dr. Levine is not. This is not the situation at all. He is heading a committee that is heavily involved in establishing public policy that affects you in enormous ways. So, like it or not, Dr. Levine, you are a public servant of the Government of Ontario. But in addition, the Canadian Association of Nuclear Medicine motions in 2005 also demanded an independent review by Canadian experts in ethics and health policy. And if that ever takes place, or whenever this finally does hit the public, in spite of the efforts of our professional journalists to keep this information from you, he makes a statement in this letter which establishes beyond a shadow of a doubt his intentions and, more importantly, what his real attitude towards breast cancer patients or cancer patients in general is. And in fact, it's this, quotes, "The results were disappointing to us." Now, what Dr. Levine knows, and of course anybody following my blog, was what precipitated the 2005 Canadian Association motions declaring the PET trials unethical was that the PET Predict trial was deliberately designed to fail. This letter was not intended for me. This is what goes out to the public, right? But what the Declaration of Helsinki says on human experimentation, you absolutely do not design trials to fail. Yet, what OCOG and the PET Steering Committee did was that they deliberately chose women with early-stage breast cancer, and they did this because they knew the PET cameras were physically not capable of detecting the cancers the women they told they were looking for. And in fact, what they did was they excluded any women who the rest of the world knew would actually benefit from a PET scan. But in addition, there's another major violation of ethical trial from the Helsinki Accord and something called equipoise. And if it becomes apparent during a trial that it will fail, it absolutely must be stopped immediately. Now, they could have known after 10 patients it was going to fail because, of course, it was designed to fail. So, anyone want to guess how many of these women Dr. Levine and his colleagues put through this trial? He states it for us right in that letter. 325 unsuspecting and terrified women with newly diagnosed breast cancer were put through this trial, which was deliberately designed to fail. Let's think about that for a moment. Remember that statement. The results were disappointing to us. If that doesn't make clear what we're dealing with here, nothing possibly could. Now, Canadian and international PET experts have already declared the actions of those blocking PET in Ontario as unethical and bordering on immoral. An example of the international community is our Professor Rodney Hicks from Australia. He's one of the most respected members on PET in the world, but he said, quotes, "Ontario has the most egregious political agenda against PET in the world." That's a statement he made to me in 2017. So the only question remaining at this point, amongst the experts at least, is whether the actions of Dr. Mark Levine and his colleagues are criminal acts. Why? Because Professor Hicks' efforts to expose what the Australian government was doing to block PET there led to criminal charges against the perpetrators. So let's just go back and reflect on this for a moment. Dr. Mark Levine has been invested into the Order of Canada for these actions. But wait a minute. Think about this. He chairs the McMaster Research Chair for breast cancer patients. Keep in mind what we just looked at. But what's also critical to remember is this. OCOG isn't just assessing PET. OCOG is an academic-based clinical trials development and coordination organization which focuses on cancer. No mention of PET there, is there? In other words, what OCOG does affects everything about cancer patients, how they're investigated and treated in this province, and it turns out other things as well. So, now do you think this is the ultimate affront to Ontario's breast cancer patients? If you took part in the Pet Predict trial, you should seriously think about contacting a good lawyer. And if you have advanced breast cancer, you really do need to consider either moving to Quebec, the U.S., or for that matter, going to Paraguay, where the physicians would know that this is how they should be investigated. In addition, we all need your help to use social media to end this assault on Ontario's patients. And here's my social media sites. Do what you can. If we don't bypass the efforts of our professional news media sources that have kept this information from you for all these years, then nothing is going to change, and ultimately we will all become victims of these people. Thanks for listening.